This is the results that we got. So first of all, we noticed differences that by using different techniques for the same materials, we were able to get different values. And for all of them, using nano indentation, we got much higher values than using the compression load. The other thing that we noticed was that with nano indentations, you were able to differentiate more between materials, whilst with this one, they were all lumped in together. So as we said initially, we're trying to see the effect of shape and size. So nano indentation gives us a better differentiation. So we could see that the regular fillers all of them gave higher Young's modulus compared to the spherical fillers. And we noticed some slight increase as the filler size increased. With the compression load, as you can see, they're all pretty much there together. And so statistically, there was no difference. And this is work that we actually published in 2009 in Journal of Materials Science, Materials in Medicine. So our two null hypotheses were rejected. We found differences between the two methods, and we found some differences between the materials due to their filler size and shape. But as the title implied, these were like fine-tuning differences. So these weren't major differences. It was just to do a very fine-tuning of the material, as we're saying there. And for most of them, the irregular filler shape gave us higher modulus values. So the second one, we used a different set of model materials. So in this one, instead of having the same filler volume, we changed the filler volume. So we had 3 series of material, A, B, and C. And in each series, the volume changed from 40, 45 to 52. And also the filler size changed as well. I have to also mention that the first series of materials, they were supplied to us by Ivoclar, and this second series was supplied to us by Tokuyama. And we also used some commercial materials there. This was also published in Dental Materials in 2008, and it's the paper that I sent to Paulo Cesar to include in the presentation. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that one because you should have it, or you can easily get it as well. So in this one, we're trying to characterize all the moduli properties. So we measure Young's modulus and bulk modulus for the materials. And we found differences now because we're moving with the filler volume. So there was a very good correlation between the Young's modulus and the filler volume fraction. And as you would expect, when the filler volume increased, the Young's modulus also increased. And that happened for all the series, A, B, and C. So for different filler sizes, and the same thing for the commercial materials as well. So we did find that positive correlation. Move on. The second part I want to mention is about the optical properties. So we measured the roughness, gloss, and color in there. For roughness, we used a 2D contact stylus profilometer, and we measured 3 roughness parameters. For gloss, surface gloss, we use a standard gloss meter from NovoCurve. Color stability, a colorimeter with a C-Lab system. And in order to see the wear or the effect of the wear in those materials, we simulated toothbrush with a toothbrush wear machine, and we measure the same properties after toothbrushing. So this is the gloss meter. It just gives you the reflectance of instant light. And the C-Lab is quite well known. So I know we're a bit behind, so I'm rushing through these things. Now, for this research, we only used the spherical unimodal materials, and in terms of commercial, we used Estelite, which has about 200 nanometer filler size in there, and the volume is similar, or it's actually higher to those that we had as experimental. This is the toothbrush machine that we have. It has 4 stations, so you can have 4 materials on each time. And if you zoom in, the materials are placed in there. Sometimes you're able to place 2 materials at the same time. These are the toothbrushes, so they go along in that direction, and they cover the specimens. You can do that toothbrushing for a number of cycles. So depending on how aggressive your toothbrushing going to be, you can increase the number of cycles or not. As a medium, we use a 50-50 toothpaste water, standard toothpaste. We have in there that we change regularly depending on the number of cycles. This is the results that we got. So before toothbrush abrasion, in terms of roughness, we didn't see any difference. So all the materials, independent of their filler size, they all had the same roughness. After they were exposed to toothbrush abrasion, we started seeing differences. And we started seeing that when you increase the filler size, you start getting higher roughness values. That's after toothbrush wear. We tried to correlate, might be a strange graph because we used the ratio of roughness against the ratio of gloss. And again, this is after toothbrush abrasion, and we found differences comparing to the filler size. So the materials that had the smaller filler size, about 100 nanometers, and Estelite, the commercial one, they had the best results, and the materials that had the highest or the largest filler size at 1,000 nanometers, they gave us the worst results. Again, this is something that we published in 2009 in American Journal of Dentistry, and these are the details there. So the last bit is about the handling properties. We started doing some research in Manchester about handling properties, and we identified two properties that we think we can measure. One of them is stickiness, how sticky is the material. I'm always talking about resin composites when I mention materials. One of them is the stickiness, how sticky the material is when it's placed there. And the other property that we call it packability, how easy it is to pack the material onto a cavity. So our aim was to try to quantify those properties, which are essential for a clinician and can affect your choice of material, but it's not so easy to quantify them. So for this one, I'm only going to focus on the packing one. So going back again to our main table, in this one we used the regular fillers. We only used one of the spherical fillers as a control, and we used Tetric Ceram, which is quite close in terms of filler composition to those ones, since both of them are supplied by Ivoclar. This is the instrument that we used, and we modified and we actually made up. So it's a custom-made one. It's based on the penetrometer principle, and penetrometer is something that is used quite extensively in food industry to measure the consistency of food. Like, for example, even if you have an apple and you want to make sure that all the apples are the same, you just put it there, you have the penetrometer goes in, and that's how they check the quality of the apples that come through, random in there. So in this one, we have this bit here which simulates the cavity, so the material is placed inside there. This is a steel base A, this is steel base B. We have this arm that is moving down after we release, this is the pivot arm, and we have a weight of about 500 grams here. So this is placed in direct contact with the material, then we release it, and then we can see how, when it's going into the material, we measure the signal that is getting from there, and from that on we're able to control, to measure the packing stress and viscosity for that material. We also have a temperature-controlled base, which means we can do the same experiment at different temperatures. So in this one, we looked at 23 degrees room temperature and also 37 degrees closer to body temperature. This is work that we're actually doing at the moment. This is an ongoing PhD student who is still working on this one. We published our first data only last month. It was in August 2007 in the International Journal of Molecular Science, and those are the details there. As I said, it's still ongoing, so we're still analyzing the results, and we're still trying to see with different materials how good it can work. Now, from those that we measured, we were able to find some differences. First of all, we found differences between the two temperatures at 23 and 37 degrees. So for both packing stress and viscosity, when we increase the temperature, the properties, the values drop down. And especially in viscosity, we had the more changes. So in terms of the effect of the filler size and the initial temperature, as we increased the filler size, the viscosity was increased. When the temperature was dropped, that difference wasn't so prominent in the filler sizes, but there was a big difference between the initial temperature and the body temperature. So we did find that fill size and the distribution can have an effect on the piping stress and viscosity, but temperature was the prominent effect there. And we also looked at some of the combinations like bimodal and trimodal distributions. There, those can have what we also calling a fine-tuning effect on the handling property. So if they're modified in a certain way, they can slightly improve the property and maybe the performance. So just to summarize what I'm talking about in terms of properties, I spoke about some of the elastic properties like Young's modulus, bulk modulus, some of the surface properties like gloss and gloss retention after wear, roughness, and a bit about handling in the end. And some of the techniques that we used for this one, nano indentation, gloss meter, profilometer handling, and the universal testing machine. Probably I missed one or other one. So the overall thing, can filler size significantly improve mechanical and aesthetic properties? And this is possibly a question that I'm sending back to the audience. If you ask me, I don't know, I'm a bit skeptical. So before I finish, I would like to thank my colleagues. This seems to be a short work, but it involved at least 3 PhD students getting their PhD in different aspects of it. So I definitely want to thank my colleague, Professor David Watts, who was always involved in them. This is my colleague, Dr. Julian Satterthwaite, which is our current postgraduate director. Then Larissa Cavalcante and Felipe Snyder. Larissa did part of her PhD thesis in Manchester, and both of them did research as postdocs in Manchester as well. This is a formal PhD student that he got his PhD with the moduli of Young's and bulk modulus and characterizing the other aspects like Poisson's ratio and so on. And finally, this is the current PhD student that's working on the handling properties, and hopefully he can graduate and get his PhD and become a doctor as well. So thank you for your attention.